So welcome to a somewhat rare edition of One's World on a Tuesday, doing some cooking. And as you can see here, I've got some oxtails. They're not very meaty, they're not like the kind of oxtails you find in the United States or in England, but they're oxtails, and I really like oxtail soup and oxtail stew, so that's what I'm going to make today. Now I'm going to start here by putting some olive oil into my skillet, and on low heat I'm going to cook some onions until they're browned off, and then I'm going to add the oxtails and brown them off, and then I'm going to put these and some leeks and some garlic into some beef broth and cook for 3 hours. It takes a long time to get the meat tender and to get the broth all tasty and divine. So let's get started. If you've seen my videos before, you'll understand about browning onions. That is, you need to do it really slowly over low heat and keep a constant eye on them. It takes them about 20 minutes for them to get to this stage. You can see they're just beginning to brown. I don't want them to brown much more than this. I'm going to keep a very close eye so that they just brown smoothly without burning. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them off the hob here and put them in this pot here, which is beef broth, which is seasoned with Worcestershire sauce, parsley, pepper, allspice, thyme. I'm going to put the onions in here. I'm then going to brown off the oxtails, and then some leeks and some garlic, and all's going to go into this pot, and it's going to simmer for at least 2, possibly 3 hours. So here you can see that the onions are almost browned, just a little bit more, and then I'm going to put them into the stock pot, and then I'll turn my attention to browning the oxtails. Okay, so now I've turned the heat up to high so that I can brown off the oxtails themselves, and then I'm going to put them into the stock and finish off with the leeks and garlic. And as you can see, it doesn't take any time at all. They're nicely browned, and I'm just going to let them finish off, and then I'm going to add them and the olive oil into the stock pot, and then I'll see you in 2 or 3 hours. So here are my final ingredients that go into the stock. Some leeks and quite a bit of garlic. I'm just going to sweat it down a little bit. I'm not going to brown it. I'm just going to soften and then add everything to the pot, and then away we go. And here's our starting point. I've got it on the gas burner right now, but I'm going to move it over to the induction burner in a minute. But I'm not going to do that just yet because the induction burner makes a lot of noise and I want to be able to be heard over it. So this is what's going to happen. It's going to be simmering like this for at least 2 hours and possibly 3, and then I'm going to let it cool and refrigerate overnight and finish off tomorrow. So here we are 3 hours later. The stock is very rich and tasty, and I've just turned it off, so I'm going to let it cool and then put it in the refrigerator overnight, and then I will continue tomorrow first by deboning the meat on the oxtails. I'm going to add a few more ingredients, including some carrots and celery, maybe some potatoes, I don't know. And I think I may make 2 versions of the soup. I'm not sure, but let's put it to bed right now. So here's the soup after it's been refrigerated overnight, and I've had it sitting out on the counter for several hours just to warm up, because there's no point in heating up refrigerated food when the ambient temperature in the room will do it for me. Now I've got some decisions to make. I'm going to split this in 2 at some point, but for right now I'm going to put everything back into a saucepan, and you can see over here I've got some carrots. I'm going to dice them up and add them and simmer everything for a little bit, and when the broth is just even a little bit warmed through, I'm going to take out the meat and take it off the bone, and then I'm going to decide what I want to do with the 2 halves. I think what I'm probably going to do is make one into a stew that is quite rich, and then I'll also add some more onions, some potatoes, and the carrots, of course, and that will make a substantial meal. And then I'll make a smaller portion, grammatically incorrect to say the smaller half, but the smaller portion I will blend, I think, into a pureed soup, and then just add a little bit of meat afterwards. So let me get started on heating things through. Now here's an interesting anomaly, not expected. I poured everything from the casserole into my saucepan, and when I put the casserole back down, all the meat was still in the casserole. I hadn't separated them at all, but there it is. It's cold, and I'm not sure, but I'm going to get my fingers in there, and if the meat comes straight off the bone, as it might, then I'm not going to put it back into the broth just yet. But the broth is over here in a saucepan on low. I'm going to start heating it up, and I'll add some carrots and maybe adjust the seasonings a little bit. I don't know. It's going to depend on what it tastes like. I'm not going to taste it cold just yet. Remember one of my other mantras: taste, taste, taste. Right? There are 3 components to making a good soup. Just like the realtors will often say, there are 3 things about real estate: the location, location, location. Well, with food, it's taste, taste, taste. If you're going to make a good soup, you have to taste it all the time, and I mean all the time, and adjust your seasonings, adjust your ingredients, everything all the time. Now here's what I've done. I've divided the broth into 2, and here I've just put some into a dish, including the new carrots that I had omitted, along with the broth from last night. And up over here you can see I've got a pot with some potatoes and some more leeks, and I'm going to poach them down. This is going to be a main stew of oxtail, and I'm going to add the meat when I take it off the bone. I've removed the bones from the broth at this point, and I'm just letting them cool down a little bit, and I'm going to take the meat off the bones. I'm going to put most of it in here. I'm going to puree all of this, and then I'm going to add a little bit of meat. So let's get to it. Alright, so I've now divided the original into 3 parts. Here's the first part. I simply strained off all of the vegetables to leave a kind of consommé. Now I could have clarified this if I'd wanted to. It would have taken me a long time and would have been interesting, but don't really feel like it. So I've just strained off some of the broth and added some leeks in dumplings, and that will make one dish. Then over here I took some of the vegetables and broth and pureed them, and then I added a little bit of the meat. That's dish number 2. And then dish number 3 over here is the broth and vegetables and meat all together making a stew. And this is very thick and will form a complete meal for me later today. So I've got 3 dishes. One of them a complete meal. This one, the other 2 just preparatory soups. All really nice, very, very flavorful and quite delightful. So hope you enjoyed this extra excursion into cooking that I just felt like doing. So please like and subscribe. Please tell your friends, all of the above, and I'll see you when I see you.